Rick, we're at the 1-year mark since the train wreck withdrawal from Afghanistan. I want you to listen to this soundbite from an upcoming story that we have on Victory News.
I think it was an absolute travesty what took place in Afghanistan, an absolute travesty, because the way we pulled out and at the speed that we pulled out and the level of miscommunication going on between the Department of Defense, the Department of State, and the White House was egregious at every level. We left so many innocent people hanging in the balance.
Rick, how did it go so wrong in Afghanistan during the pullout?
Well, like virtually everything that this president's done, a complete debacle. And Rudy, that you had on just there, friend and phenomenal guy. I mean, he was very involved in rescuing folks out of there and dealing with this debacle that the administration created. And the problem we've got is that this president is so out to lunch. He doesn't pay attention to the rule of law. He doesn't pay attention to common sense. I mean, you had the story just a few minutes ago about now these new approvals for new vaccines that violate federal law. It violates the law. It violates common sense. It violates medical ethics, but they don't care. They still push it forward. You talked about Dr. Fauci and the fact that Rand Paul is going to continue to investigate him. He should, because, look, this man hid the treatments that would have prevented the emergency authorization and should be preventing the emergency authorization of additional vaccines. But they're ignoring the law, Greg. They just do not care about the rule of law anymore.
All right, so let me ask you this. With the Afghanistan in our rearview mirror now, has that failed withdrawal affected us in places like Ukraine and Taiwan?
Of course, and all over the planet. Of course, Ukraine and Taiwan are the ones we talk about because it's the most obvious, and they were already on the radar. But it's undermining us all over the planet in every nation right now. It's making it more and more difficult for our folks that are trying to do good around the country to do so. And it's going to create more and more attacks on our nation and more and more aggressiveness from folks like Putin and others because they know that America's weak.
All right, Rick, NBC and other news outlets have said that Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene has declared war on trans kids. Listen to her response.
Steve, they're trying to get me killed. Those media companies, they're responsible for trying to get me killed by those horrific headlines. I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm trying to protect children from the left's perverted and evil ideology that is trying to maim and mutilate children. It's child abuse.
Rick, how is protecting kids from being mutilated declaring war on them?
Yeah, it's horrific child abuse. She's exactly right. If you've seen any of these pictures of what they do to these girls, the skin grafts from their arms, it's awful, folks. I mean, it is evil and it is wrong. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is trying to save these children. But the left, I'm telling you, they project. And so they try to act like she's the one abusing kids when she's the one actually trying to save children. They're responsible for the swatting that took place where people are threatening her in the middle of the night because of the good that she's doing. So please, folks, pray for her. Pray for Lauren Boebert. Pray for these other members of Congress that are calling this what it is, child abuse.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Listen to Jack Posobiec comment on Google's own efforts at racism.
Google has a new strict cap on the number of white and Asian students that universities can nominate for a prestigious fellowship program. Legal experts are looking at this policy and they say that it obviously violates civil rights law and could threaten the federal funding of nearly every elite university in the United States. Wonderful.
So with all these woke companies and universities limiting numbers of whites and Asians for work and school, isn't that a form of systemic racism?
Man, we used to call it that, Greg. It's so plain and simple. I mean, anybody with common sense looks at that and says, if you're judging an applicant based on the color of their skin instead of the content of their character, their work ethic, their results, it is racism. It's blatant racism. It should be denounced in this country, not celebrated by some of our largest companies.
All right. Rick, do you have any student loans?
Fortunately, mine are paid off, but now apparently I have a lot of new student loans given to me by Joe Biden.
Okay,
yeah.
Apparently this was the reaction by gender studies majors when they learned that all their student debt would not be forgiven. Your reaction? Your thought?
I'm just enjoying the moment. Think about it. That's what our universities have produced, folks. Defund the left by defunding the universities in America.
Well said. Rick Greene, thank you so much. Back in a moment. Fior, over to you. Greg.